This is R1 and 3 Autoethnography with your host, Steven. On today's episode, we have a guest, Kelsey, and we're going to be talking about things like self-esteem, body image issues, and a lot more. On this podcast, we talk about our lived experiences with mental illness. So before we get started, you got to know that we are not medical professionals, and you should see your doctor if you're concerned about your mental well-being. So why don't you introduce yourself, Kelsey?
So my name is Levi, and I'm a co-host. Just kidding. Yeah. So my name is Kelsey, and I'm from Priestville, Saskatchewan, where I was not born, but I was born in Yorkton, and then raised in Priestville my whole life. I graduated from there, and then I graduated in 2019, I guess, and then I came to the city for fall 2019 U of S start date. So I'm a university student currently at the end of my second year, going into my third year. And in my 2 years, it's been a roller coaster. My first year, I was in arts and science doing the pre-professional year to nursing, where it went actually really well. I ended up on the dean's list, so felt subtle flex. So I got into nursing for second year, and come about March, I think, is when it kind of hit the rocks a bit, when I decided that nursing is, in fact, not for me, and that I was going to switch to my original kind of dream job that I reconsidered now, of being a math teacher.
I thought you were going to say master chef, because I know you want to cook too.
That's in there too.
Yeah, fair.
And country singer.
That is fair. You could do that right now. We have the mics out. What made you quit nursing, Kelsey?
So what made me quit nursing? Well, I guess throughout the entire year, there was an extremely large workload. And I don't know. I feel like my friends kind of noticed it in me, but I also noticed it in me that I just became really down a lot of the time and unhappy. And it was really doing a number on me. So, there was that already kind of brewing of just kind of general unhappiness, and I was constantly behind. And that might be partially due to poor time management, but no one is not guilty of that for online school, first of all.
Yeah, that's fair. And I remember that you would tell me, like, you got very emotional every day. Like, you would basically cry yourself to sleep every night, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of nights where it was like mental breakdown, and then either talking to a friend, but most of the time talking to my boyfriend, where he would calm me down. But there was a lot of upset nights because of how much schoolwork I had, or how behind I was, or how I was comparing myself to other people in class, because when you apply to a professional college that only takes in the top percentage of top academic achieving people, everyone's a little bit competitive and everyone gets high marks. So there's like, you don't have the same validation you had in just regular schools, I guess, I would say.
But what was it about nursing that made you quit? Like, what was the breaking point?
Well, I would say it's kind of a two-part breaking point. First, I failed my first clinical, and that a lot of people would say that, like, oh, she failed her clinical, obviously she quit because she can't handle failure. But that wasn't the case. I put a lot of thought into it, because the truth of the matter was I failed the clinical, and it was definitely it was going to have a big impact on how my schooling would be scheduled for the rest of the degree. It would put me back approximately a year. So at that point, you have to kind of just ask yourself, is this really what I want? Like, is this worth it? And for me, it was not really what I wanted, because for the past 2 years, whenever I saw anyone post something about the College of Education, there was something inside me that got like a little jealous, I guess. It was like, I wish that was me. And so I guess the second part of the breaking point was after I failed, and after I like kind of came to the realization that this was a critical point for me. Either I was going to switch, or I was going to pick myself up, dust myself off, and go forward in nursing. So I really had to reflect on if being a nurse was what I wanted. And I came to the conclusion that it wasn't, because first I talked to an actual nurse. I reflected on the clinical experiences, which as much as one can enjoy a class, the class isn't what the career is going to be. It's going to be more like the clinical. And I honestly did not want to go at all to any of my clinicals. Like, I dreaded waking up. I dreaded walking in the door. I dreaded interacting with clients. It just wasn't for me. Other people are probably really passionate about it. And if they are, great for them. But it just wasn't it's just not what I think would get me fired up and happy every morning as a career.
Well, when you walked into those clinicals, like, what was going on in your mind?
Oh, I was just counting down the hours until it was over. Honestly, like, check my watch every like 10 minutes. I'm like 10 minutes closer to going home. Like, I was not happy. I was anxious interacting with the residents. And like, I expected some sort of warm feeling inside when you're helping someone or caring for them. And other students actually talked about how good it made them feel. And I did not. I did not feel. It's like, obviously I was empathetic and caring and nice, all those things. Like, I got complimented on that by my clinical instructor, how that I was caring and patient and stuff with the residents, but it just didn't light something up inside me.
If you were, or if someone noticed that you were anxious, you probably presented it a little bit.
Oh, I was feeling anxious. I'm just, an anxious person to begin with, but when you're dealing face to face with someone who needs your care and needs it properly, like, you could harm someone potentially if you did something wrong. So there's a lot of kind of responsibility and trust put on your shoulder, and anxiety doesn't really help that because it comes and says in your ear that you can't, or maybe you can't, or what if you can't. And so knowing you can, but having those thoughts kind of impacts what physically shows in your body, if that makes sense. Like, you could fit, like, I am really good at memorizing things. I can tell you the things were in my head. It's just like something as simple as like, am I supposed to do a minute thing this way or this way? Both are acceptable, but it's hard to make a choice because what if one's more right than the other and I choose the wrong one?
So it's like paralysis by analysis.
I don't know what that means, but it rhymes.
Like being paralyzed by the choices, sort of.
Yeah, a bit of that.
And what were those thoughts like? Or what did they sound like when you got anxious in clinical?
They sounded like a lot of second guessing, I would say. Like, am I sure this, like, I'm supposed to do it this way? A lot of it was what way it was supposed to be done, not what was supposed to be done. And it's like minute, like, literally, yeah, I don't know how to expand on it any more than that.
That's fair. That's okay. You mentioned earlier that university is nothing like conventional school. So I kind of want to go back to your life before you lived in Saskatoon. Did you kind of find that you were anxious as a child?
I don't know if as a child. I really don't. Because I'm not sure if I would, like, I don't know how much I remember.
That's fair.
Like, of how I felt. I just remember some things that I did, so I can't say one way or the other on that. I know in high school, I was probably more of an anxious person. It was pointed out by a couple of teachers too.
What was going on in high school?
There's just a lot of overthinking everything. I would say that's what it was, but I've always been an overthinker.
In terms of your identity, who were you when you were in high school?
I was, well, if you started in grade 7, I was kind of chubby. I played Minecraft. Didn't really have that many friends that I fit in with in real life. Had a lot of Minecraft friends. I played sports, so I talked to people and had friends in sports too. But yeah, I guess if you're talking about grade 7 me as well, I had really low self-esteem because of how I was compared to everyone else. Chubby. Not really any other girls in my class played Minecraft, tell you that one for free. Yeah, I just hated what I looked like. And then come grade 9, I guess, I had a large weight loss because at that point I had been like, I kept playing sports and I played sports consistently throughout the whole school year. Like, volleyball, then basketball, then badminton, then track, rinse and repeat every year. So come grade 9, I ended up playing up on a couple teams, volleyball and badminton. Or not volleyball and badminton, sorry. Basketball and badminton. I played up on those. And so I had less time to eat, less time to sit around, and I had a lot more time practicing and playing games. So I had a weight loss, which big time boosted my self-esteem, self-image, all that stuff. And all through since like grade 5, this is subtle flex, I had like first class honors, and so I had top of my grade in a couple classes higher up as well. And not all classes, I will humble myself. But yeah, I guess then coming up to the end of high school, I was athlete of the year a couple years in a row, top of my class for usually like maths, sciences, English here or there, not as much though. But it was a journey for me because I went from having no self-esteem because of how I looked to having more self-esteem and actually feeling successful as a person.
That's fair. How did your self-esteem change from grade 9 to grade 12?
It just kept kind of building because as you get older, you kind of discover who you are more, you branch out and meet more people. So it was like I got to make more and more friends who eventually started to, I got a lot of compliments on my personality, which I think is because as a like grade 7, 8 or somewhere in there, I had no looks. So you have to focus on having a good personality. But I'd say my self-esteem just kind of kept going up consistently to grade 12 because I got better at the sports I was playing with more practice. I was doing good in higher classes for what a high school kid would consider a high class. I had lots of friends, and I actually liked what I look like.
Well, why is weight such a big deal for you?
Because honestly, I would say that society says in order to be pretty, beautiful, etc. as a girl, you need to be like small waist, big hips, big chest. Like there's slim thick for a reason. Like So I would say that society puts a large emphasis on girls looking a certain way, and I knew I didn't look like that. So that added with the fact that I watched other girls in my class have guys text them, have crushes on them, and I didn't get any kind of attention like that. I was just kind of funny, weirdo. No one really had a crush on me. I don't know. It impacts your self-esteem at that age. You kind of start to question your self-worth and like what's wrong with you in a way. And for me, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, wow. I actually remember, it's kind of embarrassing, but this one time I looked in my mirror and I called myself a cow, and then I started crying and I went for a walk and just thought about it. So there's a lot of hateful comments towards myself too. Like, it's not like other people blatantly called me fat or anything like that. It's just the lack of the same attention that other girls that were considered pretty got, and the comments I said towards myself. And just I spent a lot of time looking in the mirror and just micro-analyzing absolutely everything about me. And yeah, group photos, those ones hurt as well.
How did it feel to kind of be that different girl that wasn't getting complimented, that was chubby, as you would put it?
It didn't feel good. It felt like I would never be worthy of that kind of attention. Like, it felt like it was just, have you seen the movie Duff?
I have not seen the movie Duff.
Designated ugly fat friend.
Oh.
It's kind of me, but that kind of was part of why I turned to playing Minecraft, because then you can have online friends that don't know you for what you look like, and they like me for my personality. And actually, I started being friends with a group of guys who I was only friends with, obviously. But yeah, I didn't have very many female close friends. Like, I was friends with all the kids in my class, but I wouldn't say I was close with the females. I was more close with my group of guy friends because they also liked video games. I had similar sense of humor to them. I don't remember what the question was.
I don't remember what the question was either. When did you start to compare yourself to other girls?
I'd say about around grade 6. That's when people start having awkward little crushes on each other, and like it becomes class drama if you like hold hands under the playground. That age, I would say I started comparing myself to other girls, because before that it really didn't matter. But at that age I was wearing stuff like a shirt with a built-in cardigan with a skirt and patterned leggings with socks and a random hair tie on my wrist that had a little like frizzy thing off of it. Yeah, those were the fits. So I don't blame someone for not having a crush on me.
That's fair. As you grew older though, did you have anyone comment on your weight or your appearance or anything like that negatively impacted your self-esteem?
I had this one friend who did make some comments, but they were more when I was older actually, and it wasn't about me being bigger. It was about my like my butt being too small, stuff like that. Like, wow, your butt actually looks big today. It's like, it kind of implies like, you know, yeah, that's what I would say were the comments. But I would say what more stuck out was the lack of positive comments. And you can also see like not only the lack of comments towards me, but you also see the surplus of comments towards my friends, like the comparison there. Yeah. And
from grade 7 to grade 12, your self-esteem improved, correct?
Greatly, yes.
How did that change once you came to university?
Oh man, the freshman 15 I could handle. The COVID-19 has now put me over because, yeah, I would say that a big part of what makes me feel better with self-esteem is keeping my weight down, and high school did that for me eventually in the end. I was as small or whatever as I wanted to be. I had the correct body that I wanted. But coming to university and not really going to a gym, having minimal sports type things to do, coming to a city where it's not really safe to walk around by yourself, especially. Like, I used to go for walks pretty much every day when I lived back at home. I didn't have the money to spend on a gym, so your physical appearance goes a bit downhill. It happened slowly because when I first got here I was fine, but as now we had headed into the pandemic where you're even more constricted and you can't do anything really, yeah, that's pretty much what it boils down to. You can't really do anything. So seeing a bit of weight come back, which is actually normally just happens with age. Like, you're never going to be the same person you were in high school. But seeing weight come back on has been a large impact for me because it takes a toll on confidence, self-image, self-esteem. And yeah, it's just really difficult to cope with, I guess.
Well, how was your self-esteem affected once you gained that freshman 15?
It dropped a little. It wasn't as fragile as it used to be. Like, I know I'm more than that now. I'm a student. I'm a friend. I'm a girlfriend. I'm funny sometimes. Yeah. I'm more than just what I look like. And there's people who don't, well, like, they know what I look like, but most people don't see a huge difference in me. Like, I'm my biggest critic, that's for sure. But I'm a lot more to a lot of people than just what I look like.
Yeah. But at the time, how did you feel about that weight gain?
Not good. My self-esteem dropped. It's like you look in the mirror every morning and either you see worsening things or you convince yourself that you see worsening things.
What did you see when you looked in the mirror?
It differed from day to day. Some days it was like, dang, looking kind of good today. And other days it's like, God, why did I eat that bag of Doritos yesterday? Or why did I go out for supper yesterday? Why didn't I eat more vegetables yesterday? It's all just like, I don't know. Like, literally some days I will see a round stomach, physically round, compared to the rest of my body. And other days it's like a shape that I am fine with. So that's, I guess, what I saw was either on bad days, something that would kill my self-esteem, pretty much. And on all right days, I saw something that wasn't as good as high school, but was livable.
How did your self-esteem change when you had, well, not weight fluctuations, but perceived weight fluctuations?
Well, it really changes your mood for the day, because if you look in the mirror in the morning and you're like, wow, I look good today, then chances are you're going to dress in a way that flatters your body. You're going to have a better mood to begin with. So then your friends will act more positively towards you instead of being concerned. They just be happy. It's just like the recipe for a good day, I would say, if you feel like you look good. And I think that's not just with me. That's probably with anyone. If you get yourself ready in the morning and you like how you look, you're probably going to put that out there to the world that you feel good that day. Versus if you feel bad that day, I should stop saying you. I would want to hide my body, and usually I just wear sweaters regardless of how I feel. That's just who I am. But yeah, I'd want to like hide my body. I would probably not want to be in photos that day. Like, I know Snapchat's a huge thing, and that it takes that's a whole nother can of worms. But yeah, pretty much you don't want to be in your own skin that day, so you kind of act like you're not, if that makes sense. Like, you just try to hide it and forget about it, or hope that no one's looking at you thinking the same things that you're thinking about yourself.
What were you thinking at those times?
That I was like fat, pretty much, like that I had gained weight, that I'm a disappointment for gaining weight, that people were judging me based on how I looked, being like, wow, she's lazy, or like, dang, why didn't you go to the gym? Or I don't know. You just don't want other people to think you're ugly in general, I'm sure. No one wants to be seen as like, yeah, no one wants to be seen as just not a failure. No one wants to be an eyesore. I'll say it that way.
So it sounds like your mind started to put these thoughts that were kind of not yours in your head.
Ish. Because some of them were definitely my thoughts. Like, I'm sure if someone else looked at me, they just think I'm the average person, if that makes sense. Like, I would say that if other people looked at me, they would say I'm average. But if I look at myself, I know what I was. And to compare to what I was, that's what hurts me.
Well, why do you think you compare yourself so much?
Because in high school, I was top of my class, female athlete of the year. I had better relations with a lot of my friends, and I hadn't gone through a lot of the stuff that I've gone through now. I don't know. I was just life was easier. Like, everyone would say this. Life was easier in high school. I looked like what I wanted to look like after a long journey of hating what I looked like.
So you compared yourself to yourself in the past. Did you compare yourself to other women too?
Oh, for sure I did. No, like, university is the worst for that. Well, the second worst. I know where the worst place for that is. That's social media. But university, there's a lot of people from a lot of walks of life that have had different things happen to them, like learn lessons, I guess, at different points than we have. Everyone's just at a different place. So there's actually a lot of people that'll like dress up nicely and like they take care of themselves and clearly aren't eating ramen for supper every night and go to the gym and stuff. So it's like, it hurts to see that, knowing that if I would have upkept myself, that's probably where I'd be. But it's not easy to move from a small town to a city and start going to a big school and start riding a bus even. That's even a challenge. So there's a lot I had to go through that kind of contributed to why I had less time for myself.
Well, what about university in the city made it challenging compared to a small town?
So just the responsibility of it all, I would say, first is a change that made it hard. And then university classes are a huge jump from high school classes. They expect way more from you. You go through an entire unit in a 50-minute lecture where the prof talks about it for 2 minutes and you try to write down as much as you can. That's a large stressor. And then budgeting is an enormous stressor. Like, the food at home versus just getting Flaming Wok right now, which Flaming Wok is the best. So it was an easy Flaming Wok win. Oh, and also a change in hobbies, because my hobbies before were playing sports and walking around with friends, and neither of those are possible now. So it's like, you're just kind of stuck with, or I was just kind of stuck with no hobbies, and I'm still trying to fix that and figure it out.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you mentioned university was second place in terms of comparison. What's first?
Oh, social media. That is what is the first and the absolute worst for comparison.
Why do you say it's the absolute worst?
Because you're comparing to yourself when you look your best. You're comparing to literal models. You're comparing to influencers who are slightly lower than models but still look like them. And then you're comparing to your friends as well, where everyone looks their best. Everyone most likely has a filter or editing. And that was a moment in time and from a certain angle. And chances are none of those people actually look like that. Like, they edit out stuff like stretch marks, cellulite. You change the angle so you don't have a double chin. You position your hair to cover your insecurity of your one mole on your left cheek or something. Like, everything that's bad or undesirable is covered. It's all just what makes you feel good about yourself. So even me comparing myself to my Instagram, if I look in the mirror, that's not what I'm seeing. Like, I took that when my hair was done. I was wearing a nice outfit. There was good lighting from a good angle. It's just not what you look like. So it's really hard to compare yourself to this unrealistic, literally impossible image of you or your friends or someone famous or someone slightly less famous.
Yeah, and that's fair. But how does it make you feel when you compare yourself to those people?
Awful. It would make anyone, I don't know. There's a lot of girls that want to uplift their friends, and kudos to them, but a lot of the times these, like, the photos they're posting, I get everyone wants to look good and their best, but okay, I'll say it from this situation. Say you are at home on your phone, bored, like 90% of the people are right now in the world, and you're wearing sweatpants, you're in bed, and you have no makeup on, your hair isn't done, it's in a messy bun or something, and you're eating literally probably ice cream or chips because everything is so stressful right now. And you go on Instagram and you pull up this picture of someone with their hair done, their makeup done, outside with a bunch of friends in a cute outfit, looking physically probably fit or like from a good angle that hides any kind of chubbiness or cellulite or stretch marks or moles or anything considered unflattering by society. How do you think you're going to feel comparing yourself to that? Like, wow, all these people look like this. They're all the friends. And they just like look great compared to me in my bed with my sweatpants, eating ice cream, doing nothing. Yeah, it's just like the immediate comparison of even what you're doing right now. Or like you think about your best photos on Instagram even. You could compare those too. And then you would say even on your best, which is not actually what you look like, you'd still not compare to what you think they have posted. But realistically, what they've posted is probably an over-edited, planned out photo.
Yeah, and you mentioned comparison, but somewhere in there too, you mentioned feeling kind of bad for what you're doing at the time. What do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, it goes beyond just what you look like. If you are a person who's just laying in bed, kind of minding your own business, you're bored or you're done what you're doing for the day, and you look on Instagram and there's someone out there, like, first they look unreasonably good, like wearing makeup, hair done, good outfit, and they're like helping the poor or saving puppies or something. You're like, damn, I'm kind of in my bed doing nothing, and someone's out here contributing to society more, being a volunteer, helping other people, and you just start to feel ashamed about yourself and who you are.
Yeah, like, so it's kind of that unrealistic expectation that it sets, right?
Yeah, it is definitely the unrealistic expectations that not only other people set for you, but you set for yourself.
Yeah. What do you think when you see your friends on social media?
See, it's hard because you want to support your friends and you want to uplift each other, but seeing my friends on social media, even when I guess even though they're my friends, it doesn't change the fact that seeing them looking good could make me feel bad about the way I look. It doesn't change regardless of who it is. It's just like, wow, someone I'm close to can even look that good. Like, it's just those thoughts that go through my head.
Yeah. And this is more of a personal anecdote of social media, but I find that when I see my friends on social media, I'm an anxious person. I'm sure you guys know that too. But when I see my friends with other friends, that as bad as that sounds, it makes me feel bad. Like I start comparing myself to them, and I'm like, why am I not in those pictures, or why am I not in certain situations? So do you ever find something like that happens to you too?
Yeah, the snap maps should not exist under any circumstance, because not only can you see where people are and if they're together, but you can see when they were last active. So that one's another stab right to the self-esteem. If you think you're having an enjoyable conversation with someone and you're undelivered 15 minutes ago and you see active 5 minutes ago, that is a different kind of pain.
Yeah, but how do you feel when you see all your friends together?
Left out, unwanted. Yeah, you're just like, why wasn't I invited? Why aren't I good enough?
Well, I even remember last year before you turned 19, you would see your friends at the bar, right? How did that feel?
That felt absolutely awful. Seeing other people, okay, so say you're underage and you can't go to the bar. It's like, man, I do not make that much of an impact on them. Like, they're fine knowing I'm upset, just going. Regardless, it just makes you feel like you don't matter. And I know that's not what they're trying to do. They're just they're of age. They should be able to go wherever they want. It's just the impact it has on the person who gets left at home, I would say.
What were you thinking at those times?
I was thinking that it didn't matter, that I wasn't there, or that everyone is happier without me. Or I was wondering what they were doing, or what was happening. And then slim chance anyone was wondering what I was doing.
Yeah, because everyone else was
having fun together while I'm sitting at home.
Yeah, social media is dangerous for that. I agree that Snap Maps is dangerous. But aside from what you were feeling at the time, how did you cope with that?
Most of the time I had to distract myself. Like, even if I didn't feel like going out that night, I would just find something and do it just to feel like I wasn't like a loser staying at home, you know? Like, if I didn't have plans with someone, I'd make plans, because then I would be doing something too and I wouldn't have to think about it. But that didn't even work. Like, you're out with friends and then you're still thinking about it. Hell, you're left out.
What if you couldn't cope with it?
What if I couldn't cope with it? Then I guess my personal resort is just to cry. If I'm not able to cope, I'm a crier.
Yeah, that's reasonable too. I remember some of the phone calls we've had, not in your case, but me, when I feel excluded too. It's like there's that sinking feeling in your chest, and no matter how hard you try to think about something else or do something else, you're kind of like, I feel shitty because I think like I'm a piece of shit to my friends, like, and that sucks. But it's weird, social media, because nobody's like actually downright saying like you are not perfect or you aren't a good friend, but it kind of implies it, right? What else do you have to say about social media?
I would say that it's gonna have a really big first, I guess I would say that it's unavoidable now. It's what we're gonna live with. Like, there's a lot of times where I just wish I could go back to like even my parents' generation of like drive-ins and going to someone's house if you want to see them, or me as a child going to someone's house and knocking on the door if I want to ride a bike with them. Like, that'll never exist again. Communication is way easier than it used to be, and we're not going to go back on that. Like, society's going to keep evolving, and honestly, I think social media is just going to become more and more toxic and get worse. But what scares me is the impact it's going to have on the people who didn't grow up going to their friend's house and knocking on the door. Like, even just today, I haven't knocked on someone's door in a long time, and I'm not one for doing it to strangers, but I was terrified to knock on the door of someone's house that I wanted to buy a bike. I can't imagine being that scared walking up to my friend's house, and I feel like that's what's going to happen to the kids that grow up only texting. Like,
well, when you grew up, did you have a phone or social media?
No, definitely not. I didn't have an iPod 4 until grade 5 with just games on it that I had to download if there was Wi-Fi somewhere we went. And then I didn't have an iPhone or iPod. Sorry, I didn't have an iPhone for a long time. But I didn't have an iPod until like grade 7 or 8. That was an iPod 5 that I eventually got like Kik and Snapchat on. So I guess I had it there, but it didn't have data or anything. So that was only for if I had Wi-Fi. And then I didn't get a cell phone until probably the summer of grade 10, I think. So having an iPod is a lot different than having a phone.
Oh yeah, 100%. So you found that comparisons were in person rather than everything that's going on in social media. Okay.
For the most part at the start. But then when I started getting like Instagram and stuff on my iPod, then if I had Wi-Fi, I could go and look at stuff. But it wasn't as free range as when I got older, like, or now.
How do you think it's going to affect children?
Oh, I think it's going to be horrible. Because, okay, take me in grade 7 when I was chunkier, or even a year before that when I was chunkier, already hating myself for what I think other people think of me, what I think of me, and how I see other people getting attention in person. Now imagine me at that age going on Instagram and seeing 40 comments on my friend's Instagram post where everyone has a crush on them, and they posted this selfie that doesn't really look like them, but I don't know that at that point. At that point, I think that's what they look like because no one's told me that they don't actually look like that. Like, I haven't figured that out yet because I don't know how much someone would consciously think about that at that age. But I could just see someone, the equivalent of me at that age, who has a lot more to look forward to and doesn't know it yet, but at that time is really sad about how they look, seeing stuff like that on social media and then comparing it to their post where they have one comment of their friend being like, ew, your tongue is large or something, like, or why'd you post this? Well, I guess I would say then I think the way it's going to impact kids coming up is now in the more critical points in the development of their self-image. It's going to be there.
You know, I noticed that you mention a lot of your comparisons have to do with appearance, and that's not taking anything away from you, but why do you think appearance is such a big part of self-esteem?
I think appearance is such a big thing in self-esteem because it's a large part of how other people portray us and interact with us. Like, I don't remember what the term for it is. It's like a term for when you first see someone, you make a judgment of them. So if you think that they look smart, then the evidence you get moving forward with them, you're trying to validate that judgment. You're trying to look for evidence that makes them smart. You're more likely to ignore stuff that makes them not seem so smart. So I think both that and just in general first impressions, they come from your appearance. So it's a big part of how other people perceive you. Like, there's a reason you dress up nicely for a job interview. I guess that's another way of putting it too.
Yeah. How did these changes in self-esteem affect you? Like, did they affect your lifestyle habits, like the way you ate, the way you talked, or the way you interacted with people?
So back in like grade 6, I recall at one point, it could be a mix of laziness and low self-esteem. I can't say I remember for certain, but I know there was times where in a container about 6 centimeters in diameter and maybe like 4 centimeters in height.
That's very specific.
I'm holding my fingers out trying to show it to myself. I put about 2 tablespoons of salmon in that, and that was my lunch. Like, it impacts. Well, when I actually had my big weight loss, it wasn't because of eating, but at one point I did eat a lot less, and I know that it does guilt you a lot about what you eat. Like, there's a lot of people with really fast metabolisms that can eat just matzo sticks on burgers, on tacos, on pizza, and they'll never change shape. But for someone, or I guess for me, I feel guilty eating a lot of things. So
what's your relationship with food like?
Now I thought it was getting better, but now I'm not quite sure what it's like anymore, because now I feel like I have to eat a vegetable with every single meal, which is a healthy way of thinking about stuff. But for a university student to have a vegetable on hand for every meal is not all that realistic. I know people want to say it, and some people probably do, but for most people, having produce or even canned vegetables on hand is not as easy as it may seem. So a lot of the foods that are quick and easy for when you're studying are kind of deemed unhealthy, like even just Kraft dinner or ramen. I know that those are both unhealthy, but even something like a wrap, where then you look at the calories of the wrap itself and you're like 160, that's pushing it a bit. Or bread. For some reason, I thought that bread was bad because it was like 70 calories a slice.
And that's not bad. Why do you feel guilty when you eat food though? Or is it just certain foods?
It's ones that are worse for me, because I feel like they're just going to contribute to the problem of my self-esteem lowering because of like gaining weight. I just feel like they're going to make me gain more weight, and that's not good at all in my head. That's what contributes to my personal self-esteem a lot. So I feel like if I ate better, that it would be better for me. And a lot of the times, even when I'm scrolling through Instagram because I'm bored, I see stuff like recipes for healthier meals, but like what do I have on hand from that recipe? Like milk and like chicken. It's not the rest of it that I have on hand, and that's expensive, which leads into more guilt, because then if I go to the store and spend $100, that's even worse in my head too, because wow, how could I do that? I know that I don't have all that much money to spend. So it's just kind of a cycle of not quite being able to pay for the best fuel for my body, I guess, and being constantly told online that that is how I fix my problem, but not having the time or sometimes the energy to cook properly for myself.
Yeah, so some of the guilt comes from money, and some of it comes from what's perceived as healthy.
Yeah.
What does it feel like when you start feeling guilty about the way you're eating?
It feels like I don't want to eat anything. It feels like I'm like disgusted with myself for what I ate. Like I don't want to look at myself, or like it's like you're stuck in your own skin almost. Like you just feel awful and disgusting. You're like, ew, about myself. Because like I could eat a slice of pizza because I'm really hungry, and then it's like, why didn't I just eat a salad? Which is awful, because everything is okay in moderation.
Like you feel physically disgusting?
Yeah, I do at that point.
Is that more in your head, or do you actually like feel physical symptoms of
disgust?
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. It's just like an overwhelming feeling of like bigness. I don't know. Yeah, bigness. No, it's like you eat like a large portion of like pizza or something, and then afterwards just feel big. I don't really know how else to describe it. It's like an overwhelming, shameful bigness.
An overwhelming, shameful bigness.
Where like you're just like, I do not want to be me. Like, gross. How could I do that? And then, yeah. Or sometimes, yeah, I don't know how to describe the physical senses of anything I get. I feel like I do feel stuff physically when I'm that disgusted with myself, but I do not know how to describe them.
Well, do you kind of see it too?
Oh yeah. That's when you look in the mirror and you're like, should not have done that.
What do you usually do in those situations when you feel big?
Well, there can be times when I'll just start drinking a lot of water because it's not calories. Or maybe just like balance it out by eating a healthier food later. Try to tell myself I won't eat like that for a few days. Or if it's really bad, kind of mental breakdown about it. Usually, my boyfriend will bring me back to like level-headedness on it if it gets really bad, because that's who I confide in the most. But if it's really bad and I just take it on coping myself. It's either like just ignore it, try not to look in the mirror. There's times where I'll purposefully not look in the mirror, or just try to distract myself, or try to balance it out somehow with my diet.
Yeah. So what happens if your boyfriend isn't there when you feel big after eating unhealthy?
Well, through power of cell phone, I could talk to him still, but usually I'll just like punish myself by only drinking water for the rest of the day or something. If it's nighttime, if it's like lunch, I ate something awful, then I'll be like, you're eating something healthy for supper.
So what do you mean punish yourself?
It's like if I ate a piece of pizza but I was still hungry and it's supper, I could like tell myself that I'm only going to drink water for the rest of the evening because there's too many calories inside me, which I honestly, I don't think I stick to it. After like an hour of self-pity, I like go back to just doing whatever I want. So it's kind of like a bump to get over, and it takes like a little bit of time, but usually I'll come back to level-minded thinking.
Yeah, that is fair. But in those moments, you must feel really overwhelmed because you're dealing with that thought that you're big, and then the thought that you have to stop eating too.
Yeah.
What does your boyfriend tell you to calm you down?
What does he tell me? He's not allowed to listen to this.
He's not allowed to listen to this.
He will usually tell me that he'll remind me that a lot of it is probably in my head. Most likely, like, people aren't looking at that. They don't see that. I don't see that. I being him. He'll compliment me and try to take my mind off of it. Tell me I have to eat. And, like, eating, it's not unhealthy to eat. He'll just kind of, like, use, I would say the best way to describe it without being too specific, because obviously it's a different thing every time, is he just brings me back to thinking logically rather than overwhelmed, anxious thoughts. He just brings in logic that I can't really argue with because he's right.
And that's fair. But on the topic of overwhelming anxiety, do you find that it's just it's mostly things about your appearance that make you anxious?
Yeah. I'd say I'm pretty confident in my personality. Like I said, you have to build up a personality when no one likes how you look. So it started then, but that's not the only reason I think I have a good personality. But I'm pretty confident in who I am. And now that I've been making bigger life choices, like switching to education instead of nursing, I don't even know if I mentioned what I was going into, but switching out of education, that it's kind of built up the soul inside me, if that makes sense. Like the person I am inside, I'm pretty okay with who that is. And I like who that is. It's just the body that I'm in. I really wish it went to the gym more often, or at least wanted to, kind of, or followed through with the want to, because I can want all I want sitting in my bed, but going through with being motivated. So yeah, I would say my physical appearance is my biggest downfall, probably, because that's what I have most of my anxious thoughts about towards myself, or most of my judgmental thoughts towards myself.
Outside of yourself, do you get anxious about your friends or around your friends?
I get in my head around my friends. Like, we can be having a great time, and then I'll think about that one time something awful happened, or like, what if this happened right now? And it can be a very upsetting thought at the time. And I'll just shut in with my friends there, which is kind of embarrassing at the time, because I'll literally be in my head thinking like, please start talking. Like, you cannot just stop talking right now. But it'll just happen anyway, because it's just not a choice at that point. I'm just not, I just shut down sometimes around my friends, but that would be the biggest problem, I'd say. Like
you can't, like you feel like you physically can't talk in those moments?
It's like I can't come up with anything to contribute to a conversation. Like, we could be talking about something that I know a lot about, or that I'm interested about, or that I'm involved with, and it's like, I just, for the life of me, cannot come up with anything interesting or up to pace with the conversation. It'll take me way too long to think of something to say, or even if I try to say it, then my tone is not on what it normally is, because usually I'm a very talkative, happy person. But if I start talking like this and I'm just not into it, then you can really tell that I'm not being normal, not feeling myself.
So when you shut down like that, what's going on in your head?
Just overthinking, mostly. Overthinking, and then once I realize that I haven't spoken in a while, I'm like, dang, please talk. Because then, like, obviously I know people who are close to me are noticing. Like, I pretty much never shut up. And if I stop talking, it's very noticeable to people who know me well. And then it's like, oh no, I need to start saying things. Otherwise, it'll be known that I'm overthinking right now. And then it's like, what do I say? And then the topic changes and I'm like, oh my gosh, now it's even worse because it's been 2 more minutes where I tried to think of what to say, but I still don't know what to say. And now I'm uncomfortable because I feel not comfortable with my friends right now because I'm not being myself. And it's just like this big snowball effect of not being myself.
Like your thoughts are cycling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say so. Like overthinking about the initial problem, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not talking. And like, oh wait, but I was thinking about this, and I'll be angry about it again. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been 4 more minutes, and I'm still not talking. People are gonna notice. Yeah.
What advice would you give to yourself when you were younger, struggling with your body image?
Well, probably just thought I was gonna get better. Because I honestly thought I was just going to grow up and die alone. No one was ever going to like me or care about me. And that's not true. Things are going to change. I would tell myself that, I don't know, being thin and pretty isn't the only thing that matters. And I would not spoil what I'm going to become or what will happen to me because I'm glad about the way it happened. Like, I know it sucks that I felt awful for a while, but it's kind of humbling in a way. Like, it's not like I just became good at things and I was like, man, top dog, like absolutely awesome. Like, no, I was a better person than that, for lack of better words. Like, I was a different person inside. I didn't get this huge ego. I was still nice to everyone. Even someone, like, as we got older, some people weren't what society deems exactly the best looking. It's like, I know what that's like. I know the thoughts they're probably having. And even though I became successful for what high school will allow you to be successful, I was still nice to all those people because that's who I was.
And that's fair. What would you tell people who are struggling with it, that are our age, struggling with body image and self-esteem?
What would I tell myself? No. I would say that every small change does matter. Like, it's not just like you have to start going to the gym all day, every day, and only eat salads. Like, no. Drinking more water in a day makes a difference. Getting some sleep sometimes makes a difference. And no one cares what you look like that much. Like, as much as you think they care, they do not care. They're probably looking at themselves more. They do not care what you look like that much. And I had one more good thing. This is the advice that I gave someone who came to me when they weren't feeling the best, and I feel like I need to take it. I feel like everyone needs to take it. You never know where you're going to be in a week. You never know where you're going to be tomorrow, in a week, in a month, in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years. You never know. This could be your wedding day in 10 years. Isn't that crazy? It could be your wedding day in 7 years. You'd never know what is going to happen to you. So just like for example, 3 months ago, I thought I was going to be a nurse. And now my entire perspective has changed. And I'm bleeding into being an entirely different person than I would have been. So no matter how you feel about how you look, it's going to change. You're not going to look how you look today. Even in a week, it will be very minimal, the change in a week, but you're going to be a different person. And so you should never stop seeing what tomorrow will bring. You never know what's going to happen. So as sad as you can be about today, tomorrow is going to be different, always.
So in a way, what I'm taking from a lot of that is you're saying the way you look doesn't define you.
It doesn't define you. It doesn't matter as much as you think it does, because there's clothes to dress up how anyone looks. Like, if you have, I don't have style, but if you do have style, you can probably look what society anyway will think of as good, even though it doesn't matter regardless. And the way you look is going to change, like, drastically, most likely, through the years. Like, I look back in high school and I'm like, I really looked like that. Like, it just changes. And
I don't think being different is bad either.
No, it's not. Because, this is a perfect time for me to say this. So, something I would say to absolutely anyone, because I think it is a great way to look at things, like appearance, is that if you take fruit, for an example, a strawberry and a raspberry, and you compare them, they look nothing alike. One is like a triangle, and the other one looks like a cloud with like many, many little balls.
No, I'm kidding.
No. So they're very different, but people like both of them, right? Everyone loves raspberries, everyone strawberries, and some people aren't gonna like strawberries, and some people aren't gonna like raspberries. But no matter how much a strawberry tries to be a raspberry, it's never gonna be a raspberry. But a very good-looking strawberry and a very good-looking raspberry are great both by themselves. Like, not great physically appearance. Like, I'm just saying, like, a happy strawberry that takes care of themselves, that loves who they are. Like, just a chillin' raspberry.
Yeah. So, like, spending your life trying to be someone who you're not when you're different is, yeah.
It'll never work. It'll never work, because no matter how hard a raspberry tries to look like a strawberry, it will never, no matter how hard it tries to look like a strawberry. Nor should it, because if it just tried to be itself instead, it would be great. So you should just try to be you. Be a raspberry. Be your own raspberry. Don't be a strawberry, because you'll never be a strawberry. You'll be like when the wolf wears, like, what does he wear? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. That's not a very cute sheep.
No, it is not a very cute sheep.
Be a fox. Be your own thing.
Yeah, it's okay to be different.
Yeah. And if you're you, that's different. I don't know. Every fruit is different.
It's better to be the best you can be rather than trying to be something that you're not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the whole analogy broken down.
Yeah, it was very complicated to explain.
It's okay. It's a good analogy.
Thank you. I would say the biggest takeaway is to be the best raspberry you can be, and not to worry about what the strawberries look like, because you're not a strawberry, you're a raspberry, and raspberries are great.
So hopefully you guys liked this episode. Make sure to check out our website in the description and subscribe on whatever platform you're on. You'll also find some resources and references we used for this episode in the description. And once again, we are not medical professionals, and you should see your doctor if you're concerned about your mental well-being. We'll see you next time.